Welcome, everyone, to the Lauren Muzyka Show. The discussion you're about to listen to was featured a few weeks ago on Life Beyond Abortion, the podcast hosted by Melissa Ohden, founder and CEO of the Abortion Survivors Network. I was so honored to be her guest, and we discussed all things saving lives on the sidewalk, the post-Roe versus Wade landscape, and the best way to be there for mothers in crisis in this new era. It was too good not to refeature here as well. And I hope all of you will take a moment and go subscribe to Melissa's podcast. Again, that's Life Beyond Abortion. So grateful for Melissa and her witness as a literal survivor of abortion. Again, you got to go check out her story. So with that, enjoy this incredible discussion.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Life Beyond Abortion. I have this incredible opportunity each episode to highlight experiences of, everyday people whose lives and their experiences really highlight the truth about life and humanity and how the narrative about abortion is not what the predominant culture continues to be led to believe. And I also have this incredible opportunity to also highlight organizations and leaders who are on the front lines and seeing the truth every day and have their pulse on what is really happening in our culture related to abortion. And so today, I want to invite you, the audience, in to get to know my friend Lauren. Lauren is the director of Sidewalk Advocates. And if you don't know them, you are going to find a way that you can plug in to your community and the pro-life movement in a new way. So Lauren, thank you so much for joining me.
So honored to be with you, Melissa. Thanks for having me.
And when we talk about experiences with life and abortion and then like what we do with it, you've had your own journey in getting involved in the pro-life movement. And I'm wondering if you would just start there, because I think sometimes, especially with my podcast, people think, that abortion survivor so-and-so, they've got a story. That's why they got involved. It makes sense that they're doing what they're doing. But normal, everyday people see the truth and they feel led to action.
Yeah. No, you nailed it, Melissa. I'm kind of boring in that I don't have this testimony of an experience with an abortion. I didn't work for the abortion industry. I was just a college kid at Texas A&M University. And I remembered that this lady came to the podium after Mass one day, after church, and she said, hey, new abortion facility went up in Aggieland just a year before, a Planned Parenthood abortion facility in our small community, college town. And we're inviting you, the faithful, just to go out 1 week or once a week for 1 hour a week and pray. And I thought to myself, I can do that. If abortion is what it really is, the taking of innocent human life, and women and families are being wounded, I, as a person of faith and conscience, can devote 1 hour a week to praying in front of these facilities in hopes that a life can be saved, right? And so that's what I did. Is I started out praying. This lady happened to be with an organization called the Brazos Valley Coalition for Life. It actually was the organization that eventually birthed the very first 40 Days for Life prayer campaign, right? And so I was going out, I was praying for the abortion escorts, the workers, the women who were going in, the families who were being harmed. And so many times I was on my knees praying, like, God, how do we reach these women? Like, it just grieves my heart. As somebody who has a family member, has had friends who have had abortions, I didn't know the best way to reach them. About a year later, they brought in a famous sidewalk counseling trainer named Karen Black out of Georgia. She's now in Indiana. And she had been out on the streets in Atlanta, Georgia, interfacing with women and families in crisis, considering abortion in front of her local abortion facility. And I was just mesmerized by her. I was like, wow, like this woman basically has a blank check to change generations, right? Going out there and offering loving, life-affirming alternatives to those going in, saying, you have options, you have resources, you don't need to do this. And that just left a mark on me. I was like, I need to do this, right? And so I got trained under her as a sidewalk counselor. And I remember I went out most Saturday mornings throughout college and trying to reach out to the women going in. But I tell people that before the 40 Days for Life prayer campaign, this 40-day prayer campaign, peaceful, prayerful presence in front of abortion facilities happened, we had kind of a hodgepodge of things that were going on the public right-of-way outside that facility. So we had a guy who would dress up like the Grim Reaper and pace up and down the sidewalk trying to shock people into what it was they were doing. We had people with ugly signage. We had people with confusing signage. We had people that would come out with props. There was a guy who would stake a pole in the ground and raise the American flag as if to say, I can't believe this is legal in our country. And, if you stood back, what you noticed is that it was a circus. We all did not know how to reach the heart of a woman considering abortion. It's almost like everybody in the community was taking spaghetti and throwing against the wall and saying, maybe this will stick or maybe that will stick, right? And again, here I am praying just week after week, month after month, Lord, show me the best way to reach someone who's considering this decision. Because again, it just came from a love of my faith, a passion for people, knowing that babies were dying. If it was the Holocaust that it really was, like, how do we turn this ship around? And finally, my prayer was answered when the staff at the Brazos Valley Coalition for Life, again, that local interdenominational peaceful activist organization led by my friend David B. Wright and classmate Sean Carney, his wife Mary Lisa, and they even grabbed a volunteer named Emily. What they did is they gathered around an old wooden table and they said, God, we don't know what to do to end abortion in this community, but you do. And what God put on their hearts was this idea of 40 days for life, that God had used periods of 40 days throughout biblical history to bring about a transformation in his people. And so that fall, the fall of 2004, they invited the faithful to come out and to pray, to have an unbroken chain of prayer for 24/7 in front of that Planned Parenthood abortion facility. And long story short, the abortion rate for the first time ever dropped by a whopping 28%. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is it, right? So 40 Days for Life began to spread. I thought maybe I was actually going to be a pro-life, pro-family litigator or lobbyist. I went on to law school at Ave Maria Law, and I was helping with the 40 Days for Life in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I mean, again, began to spread across the United States, across the world. And I came back, and instead of actually launching a legal career, I jumped into full-time grassroots pro-life work. Yes, the Lord using my law degree, but in kind of a different and creative way. And so at one point, after 2 years with them, I saw the need and felt the call to start Sidewalk Advocates for Life, that just as 40 Days for Life had this ready-made, training package for people who want to have a peaceful, prayerful presence in front of their facilities, I thought, what if we could do the same thing for sidewalk counselors, those who want to reach out with their words? And of course, before I went to law school, the fall that I came back, sidewalk counseling was always something that I did. I was trained by famous sidewalk counseling priest Monsignor Riley, and then the Scheidlers out of Chicago, who arguably helped invent sidewalk counseling. And so I've learned from so many great saints. But, to your point, I'm just an ordinary person that looked at the problem of abortion and said, this grieves my heart. If this is what it really is, then why aren't we as a people of faith and conscience doing everything that we can, putting ourselves at the Lord's disposal with our gifts, talents, education, training, experience, and doing what we can in the greatest human rights movement on earth.
And you obviously have changed the course of generations for, right, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. And you are a key figure in the pro-life movement. So there has been, you have brought about incredible good and blessing, but I know you have felt so blessed by this experience yourself.
Yeah. It has been absolutely transformative. The other thing that I tell people is that having prayed in front of that Planned Parenthood facility as a college student and watching a girl named Abby Johnson rise through the ranks and eventually become the director of that facility and eventually leave because of, the power of prayer and peaceful outreach. Now she's a renowned international pro-life speaker, right? You can't watch things like that. You can't reach out to these mothers and families and help them. You can't assist abortion workers in leaving the industry and not be wildly transformed yourself. This is why I believe so much in the power of prayer. This is why I believe so much in the power of love, is because when we bring Christ's light to the sidewalk, there's no match for it. And sometimes this is the hard part. Sometimes you don't see transformation right away. It's often a process. conversion for many people is a process. And this has been so instructive in my own life. There's times where I've been praying for family members for, them to come to Christ or them to just see an area of their life transformed. And I have to remind myself, gosh, I'm seeing this on the sidewalk. If I believe it here, why wouldn't I even believe it in my own life, right? Some of the greatest lessons I've ever learned have been out on the sidewalk. The sidewalk really is a microcosm for culture and for life today. And, being an imperfect human being that continues to be saved by God and reaching out to other imperfect human beings and just saying, can I help you? I know you're here because you're in a tough spot. Yes, we know abortion is wrong. Yes, this is an egregious taking of innocent human life. But these mothers have been lied to. They've been duped. They're in a lot of crisis and pain, and it doesn't excuse any of it. Just like anytime I've messed up, it hasn't excused anything. But at the same time, recognizing that in the human experience, we're all just trying to figure this out together. And so it's just such an honor to offer a helping hand to these families and to witness the transformation occur often right in front of your eyes.
And I mean, I'm glad that you brought up the piece about abortionists and clinic workers as well. I would suspect that people in the audience, probably sort of have like the flip side version of an experience that you and I have, which is, right, we tend to see the conversion of major figures in the abortion industry and lobby, right, who are converted. And we believe in that. And because we see that and we believe in it, we see it and believe in it for the everyday people, right, who need transformation and help and hope. And I think the audience probably by and large has it the other direction, which is, right, they believe in the help and hope for the everyday people surrounding them. But I would suspect that there are people who struggle with the bridge to then say, all right, if I believe in help and hope and conversion for normal everyday people, then I need to believe the same thing for abortionists and clinic workers and right, the lawyers from the ACLU and the lawyers from Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
I think that's it's an interesting thing that I haven't really thought about before. Yeah. That you guys, and I know this to be true about you and your team, which is like, y'all walk the walk and you talk the talk and you pray the prayers. And when people see what you put out on social media, y'all are the real deal. You aren't just fluffing something up to say it. You believe it so wholeheartedly for all of them that we've identified. There is no one that you don't believe can be helped.
That's absolutely right. I mean, I heard a colleague once say that we're a movement of converts, right? You look at all of these former abortionists now, or former clinic directors like Abby Johnson, who laid down their instruments or their leadership. I mean, Abby was being groomed for a corporate position at the largest abortion facility in the Western Hemisphere just a handful of years prior to Roe being overturned. You can't watch these stories and not see evidence of God at work. I've just seen it so many times. People ask me all the time, Lauren, how are you able to do this day in and day out? Like, talk about abortion, live in this, pro-abortion world. And I tell them, you know what? I get to see the resurrection every single day. And yes, absolutely, there are heartbreaking stories, or there are stories where you're like, gosh, they have not left yet. Like, I'll just share with you, there's somewhere in the country where we are reaching out to an abortion worker right now. And there's been a lot of progress, but she can't quite leave. She told us that there are actual sacrifices to Satan going on within her facility. They're literally offering up the abortions to the other side. And the natural question for probably any of us, I'm sure even people who don't really have much of a faith, that's probably still weird to them. And anybody would ask, why doesn't she just walk out? And it's because there really is this mode of oppression. And even sometimes there's multiple abortions in someone's past, and it's a mode of pain and justification that keeps them chained to the industry. But my point is like, we see some dark stuff. I mean, every week we're getting glory stories and then hard stories. But the beautiful thing is that we also still see and believe that God is at work, that he is not done with them yet, that he's going to continue to come after them. I've seen too much now not to believe that God isn't doing something powerful, even in the midst of the spiritual battle, which so many times is so palpable, right?
Yeah, it's the encouragement to keep showing up.
Yeah.
And participating in God's will.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's half the battle right there, Melissa. There's one story that comes to mind. One of our leaders in Oregon, she was getting ready to go out for her shift and she had laryngitis. And she thought to herself, gosh, I don't know that I can be out on the sidewalk today. Like, I'm a sidewalk advocate. I'm supposed to reach out with my words, right? And then she said to herself, you know what? I can at least go out and be present and I can pray. And so she went out to the sidewalk and she knelt on that sidewalk. And there was an abortion worker that she had been developing a relationship with. And that day, he looked out the window and saw Tammy on her knees praying. And he had a moment and he said, wait a second, she's a Christian and she's out there. I'm a Christian and I'm in here. What am I doing? And she said that it ended up being so providential that her voice was gone that day because she doesn't know how she might have interfered with that whole discussion that he had with himself inside the abortion facility. And he literally got his stuff and he left. That's one of the 105 souls that we've seen leave the abortion industry. And so, I have to challenge myself on this all the time in my personal and professional life. Like sometimes what God is saying to us is, I will fight for you. You need only to be still, right? Like just the power of our presence, just the power of our prayers, that is enough. But I do think that, in the human experience, God uses our words. He uses our relationship and friendship. And that's really important because some people need that in order to leave. They need that safe place to land. They need that sounding board, right? And so we try to train people in how to not only offer those loving, life-affirming alternatives to those going in, really to be that safe place to say, you have other options besides this. You have resources, right? We'll go to bat for you. You are not alone. But then also to say that to those who work in the industry and frankly, to anybody who passes by. We get into conversations with passersby all the time when we're not reaching out to women or workers and just being a witness in the community.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I want to kind of take a step back and have you help the audience understand why we have 40 Days for Life campaigns, and we also have sidewalk advocates. Similarities, differences. Let's break it down.
Yeah, absolutely. So I tell people it's like ora et labora, right? Prayer and work. We need both. Prayer is absolutely the foundation. It's the strength by which we're able to do this work. And then we're the experts in reaching out with your words, right? I came from 40 Days for Life. I mean, I experienced the very first 40 Days for Life campaign as a college student and was transformed by it so much myself that, even when I thought about a legal career, I ended up coming back to it for a little bit and working on the national team. And then at one point, had David, the founder's blessing to leave and to form Sidewalk Advocates for Life. And he even saw it as a natural, complementary effort that, we would have these folks praying. I mean, he even said to me on my way out the door, I don't feel called to do the sidewalk counseling portion of this. If you feel called to do this, you're going to have to do it outside of 40 Days for Life because I feel called to make the vigil as strong as it can possibly be. And so it's beautiful because I would say about 65% of our sites do both 40 Days for Life and Sidewalk Advocates for Life. In fact, we've had folks come to us and say, well, I want to be a sidewalk advocate. I want to reach out at my abortion facility, but they literally have no experience in the movement, no experience praying or even having a presence in front of a facility. And so there's even been times where we've said, you know what, go to 40 Days for Life first and get your feet wet there and learn, kind of what this landscape looks like and then come back to us. Yeah, we'll be here, and we're happy then to train you and your community in reaching out with their words. But prayer is absolutely the foundation. Even if somebody doesn't have a 40 Days for Life campaign where they are, we tell people that's where you start. That's your strength. That's your shield.
Yeah. And I would suspect that a lot of people in the audience would say, okay, yeah, totally. I could go outside of a clinic and pray. Don't ask me to counsel somebody, right? Like, I can't, I won't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it feels intimidating. Yeah. It's, and I think it is a calling, David B. Wright, the founder of 40 Days for Life, that man has no shortage of words. He's an incredible orator, speaker, leader. He says, I don't feel called to it. When I go to the facility, I feel called to prayer. That's his heart. That's where God has put him. That's what feels right to him. Really, in the greatest human rights movement on earth, it really operates like the body of Christ. Some of us are the hands, some of us are the feet, some of us are the eyes, some of us are the heart, whatever it is, right? We all have a part to play in this. And some people are going to be called to reach out with their words. And I see people from all walks of life that do this, like men and women, introverts and extroverts, young and old. I've sidewalk counseled next to Grandma Jackie, who is amazing on the sidewalk, one of my old sidewalk counseling partners from Dallas. People don't run over their grandmother, right? She's amazing. Everybody listens to Grandma Jackie, all the way down to college students. Like, we help train Students for Life for their annual sidewalk day, right? And these students that go out and minister to their peers, basically. And so I have seen people from all walks of life be successful in this. And I would just say, like, if you could have a conversation with somebody, you can absolutely do sidewalk outreach, right? You can be a sidewalk advocate. But the question is, where do you feel called? Because not everybody is called to this unique form of really ministry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess, there are probably some people who also are listening to this and are going, what happens outside on the sidewalk? Is it safe?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think when people think about the sidewalk in front of an abortion facility, they think of what the media tells them, that it's going to be chaos and people are getting arrested and it's a big protest. And actually, for the most part, what we witness, and we believe we're part of, this approach and the sea change at this point in America, but it's relatively peaceful. It can even be quiet at moments, right? Now, sure, there's some folks who come out to the sidewalk with angry signage and bullhorns. And again, I appreciate their passion. I've just not seen that win life-saving conversations with women, right? We've got to win the conversation. We are strangers walking into a really precious and precarious part of her life. We've got to win that conversation, then build trust and get her to abandon her abortion appointment and come with us to the nearby pregnancy resource center, where she's actually going to receive options and resources. We're the paramedics arriving to the scenes. We want to get her into the arms of the hospital, those who can do ongoing crisis management. The body of Christ is in these pregnancy centers. They're a jack of all trades, right? And so that's kind of our MO. It's not a protest. I believe in protest. I believe there's a time and place for protest, but at that moment of decision where a woman is in crisis mode and she's headed in there and she is going to take the life of her child, to me, I want to be doing the most effective thing to reach her heart. And whether you look at the Vitae Foundation research, again, decades and decades of study on the best messaging to a woman considering abortion commissioned by the Vitae Foundation, or you have that lived experience on the sidewalk, it tells you that the only way that we're going to save these children is to first reach these mothers. And these mothers are in a world of chaos and confusion. They may be pressured by somebody. They are overwhelmed. They feel snowed in. And so we have a moment to connect with her and let her know that we're there for her. And we've seen it nearly 25,000 times now in our 11-year history. And these are just the ones that we know about. We sometimes start conversations, people leave, or people even just see us praying in front of the facility. And they were like, yep, you were my sign, and did a U-turn, and sometimes we meet those children later. And so again, this is so effective when you put it into practice.
Well, and I want people to sort of picture in their head, if they've never been on the sidewalk like we have, or they've never been at an abortion clinic, to realize, what you're saying is so true, that it can be very peaceful. And some of that peace actually is in our control. And you and I both know, we have gone through different phases in the pro-life movement where there are different forms of activism and counseling offered to women. And there is a sense of urgency. And it's not to negate, right, the efforts that took place in the 80s into the 90s, all of those things, right? All of those things ultimately got us to the place that we're in today. And you and I both have heroes from generations past, including the Scheidlers and so many others. So it's not to negate what has been done, but is to say, if we know the sense of urgency for those women and what they most need,
right?
If we are called to that place, how are we showing up for them? And I understand the heart of the people with the signs or the flagpoles and who are with the bullhorns, right? They understand the matter of urgency. They are trying to make a difference. But yet, what is the difference at the end of the day? Are we willing to step away from what we want to do what is most effective?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Melissa, you said it so well. We stand on the shoulders of giants, generations past who tried different things, who, took some different approaches. And what's so awesome, I think, for us in the modern era is that we can work within the confines of our First Amendment rights to reach out in love and peace and prayer and hope, and simply just offer people another way. It's funny when I say to a woman, we can help you. We've got even free pregnancy tests, sonograms, options, counseling. We can save you this much money. We can do all these wonderful things for you. The other thing that she hears is, I am not alone. I have other options. She hears things even that we're not saying, right? And when you go out to the sidewalk in a help-oriented disposition rather than in a protest-oriented disposition, because again, if she feels like we're protesting her or whatever, she's going to we risk that she'll shut down on us and hear nothing that we have to say. We're the noisy gong, we're the clanging cymbal. But if we go out there in a spirit of love, then we have hope to reach her heart that day. And abortion doesn't end if a mother doesn't connect with us and choose life, right?
How many locations do you guys have currently? Because obviously, if people are involved in the pro-life movement, they know a lot has changed in recent years.
Yeah. So currently we're in front of about 250 facilities. There's about, at this point in history, 765 abortion facilities. So our vision is that there would be no uncovered abortion or abortion referral facility in America. Abortion referral facility being these Planned Parenthood family planning centers that are often in our pro-life states that are like, heads of the dragon that are referring across state lines, right? So we even have a presence in our pro-life states in front of these facilities as well. And so we cover nearly 1/3 of the facilities in the United States and adding every week, right? And in this time period that we've been on the sidewalk for about 11 years, we've seen about 25,000 women choose life. And we've also, again, been able to help 105 abortion workers leave the business with the help and witness of a sidewalk advocate. And then I tell people, you help enough women and you help enough workers, it is a winning combination. We're beating Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry at their own game, right? And it shuts down abortion facilities. So we've seen 68 of those at this point in history. And of course, there's so many other wonderful conversations happening that we can't even begin to quantify. But this person-to-person outreach ministry, this element of caring, it really is so contagious, and we hope to see it spread all over the United States and beyond.
What would it take for you to expand?
Well, it would take funding, definitely. I know. We all know in the nonprofit world, definitely funding would help. And I think too, we're trying to do our part in this awareness in post-Roe America of what the landscape looks like. I think there's a lot of people in a lot of states right now that are still overwhelmed trying to understand their state law, what is happening in their state and nearby states. So, for example, I talk to a lot of Texans. That's where I'm based, is Texas. A lot of Texans think, my job is done. Like, women aren't having abortions in Texas anymore. It's like, no, just because Roe was overturned and Texas chose, thanks be to God, to protect life at conception, it doesn't mean that women still aren't leaving our counties, our state for the next nearest abortion facility. Unexpected pregnancy is still happening in Texas. It's just that some of that population, some of them are affected by the law. The law is saving lives, but there's enough of a population that's going now to, for example, New Mexico, Kansas, and Colorado. And we're having to have advocates not only on the ground here to try to let those women know about options and resources before they've made that investment of time, energy, and money to go across state lines. And then we're also able to receive them on the other end. And so this is the blessing of a national network, but we're still, trying to help people in our pro-life states understand that there's a need on the ground. And then for those who are in abortion destinations, handling the influx of out-of-state traffic, being able to service those women on the ground, let them know that we're there for them today, and then we can also get them set up with resources and support when they decide to make that decision to go back home.
Yeah, I mean, that is such a huge part of that is the communication back and forth in today's world is needed now more than ever. I mean, we're headquartered out of Kansas City. We're on the Missouri side. We record on the Missouri side. But, right, we have been very much impacted by what happened in Kansas. And I worked on Value Them Both. And I knew what was going to happen as we all did, with the out-of-state numbers absolutely exploding after Value Them Both. And, I know that team on the ground in Kansas are super, super, super special people who are showing up in ways that the abortion industry would never be doing for those women and those men and those families. And I mean, I've been at the pregnancy center. It's now 2 lines. It used to be Advice and Aid right outside that clinic in Overland Park. They're now 2 lines, but I've been there for meetings with their staff when they have somebody out on the sidewalk who's from Texas or another state, right? And they've traveled all that distance. And what they're looking for is they're looking for help and hope.
That's right. That's right. No, absolutely. One of the biggest questions we're trying to answer in this unique post-Roe landscape is that when a woman has already traveled across state lines, what is best going to reach her heart? Because, I mean, it's even that idea in the psychology of influence, commitment, and consistency, like, wow, I have come all this way. Right. I've made this huge investment. I've seen this as a solution all the way along, a solution to my problem. And now someone's telling me I can do a 180 and I might have to go back home and I've got to trust what they're saying. And I've got to, she's trying to recalculate this whole thing because she had an answer, but somewhere deep in her heart, she doesn't want to do it. And so that's why we at Sidewalk Advocates for Life are actually getting ready to launch something called Maria's Fund, because a lot of these women, they're going across state lines and they're fully funded by one of these abortion funds. There's the Bridget Alliance and, the Dear Jane hotline, the NAF hotline, and Planned Parenthood's connected to all of these different funding sources, right? And women can now get fully paid for abortions across state lines. I mean, flight, hotel, meal money, childcare. It's absolutely unbelievable what they're handing to some of these women. And we know firsthand because we work with these women, right? Mm-hmm. So now what we're doing is when we meet a woman on the sidewalk who has been funded all the way there and wants to change her mind at risk of the abortion fund literally dropping her in that moment and refusing to Zelle her the rest of her meal money, refusing to, Venmo the rest of the incidental money that she was promised, we're able to step in and go, we can get you the flight back home, the meal money, the childcare, whatever it is. We're going to give you a bridge of support to get back home so that you can get set up with your home pregnancy resource center. And so we're so excited about this new, really, it's the nation's only pro-life rapid response counter fund to all of this madness. And so hopefully we'll be able to launch that before the end of the year.
Oh, that's so exciting. That gives me chills. And, you know how passionate I am about serving women and, how the abortion industry is not empowering, supporting women. I can think of, the testimony of a woman who, I talked about this at a Sidewalk Advocates conference that I spoke at, the story that I spoke before Congress about, which was, the woman in Texas who was given $12,000 for her 3rd abortion. So 2 rounds of abortion pills failed. And so their response was to give her $12,000 to go to New Mexico for a late-term abortion, hotel, lodging, all of the business. And she didn't go through with it because when they completed the ultrasound, she was scanned in at 27 weeks as opposed to 24.
Yep. Yep. Well, and Maria's fund, again, the story that you just told, we've experienced this as well multiple times. Maria's fund is named after a Texas mom named Maria that we just helped to cancel a fully funded late-term abortion at 26 weeks in Washington, D.C. In fact, she first tried to go to Kansas. Miraculously, the clinic was honest with her and said, you're a week or two past the gestational limit here and we can't do the abortion, but we can send you up to Chicago and do it, or we can do a full-term abortion later in DC. So anyway, she calls back the abortion fund and they said, no problem, we'll get you set up with another trip, fully funded. And so she was just days away from that late-term abortion in Washington, DC, and met us at Sidewalk Advocates for Life. And it was absolutely chilling. I did actually a couple of podcast episodes on this, but it was absolutely chilling to hear her talk about the journey. She made one phone call to Planned Parenthood. By the end of the day, she had a fully funded trip for a late-term abortion, and everything was covered. They were dumping so much money into her account. Oh, are you scared? Here's $200 more. Oh, do you need something else? Here's $300 more. For a low-income woman, that was a lifeline. That was a lot. Then they assigned her a counselor. In DC, they were going to give her an abortion doula, right? I mean, this whole kind of post-Roe network of abortion funding, it is absolutely chilling when you actually look at it. I have the emails, I have the receipts from her entire journey. And she was just the most amazing point of inspiration for us to say, if we are going to end abortion, we have got to step up our game in the pro-life movement. And that's not to disparage any of the work we've done or anybody else has done, but what are we doing to strategically compete with this madness? And so, we've got to constantly, all of us, be thinking outside of the box and how we better meet women who are literally having hundreds and thousands of dollars dumped into their bank accounts to go abort their babies. And they're not even being told what's going on. I mean, Maria was told that at 26 weeks, she would be able to go back to work a few days later and she would have, it'd be like, a light period. And I mean, they didn't even tell her what all a third trimester abortion entails. And you and I know that that's often a 3-day procedure with laminaria, and they deliver the baby stillborn after they inject that baby's heart with digoxin to cause a sort of cardiac arrest. I mean, she was not given any of that information. And so, again, it just reminds me, Melissa, we still got work to do. We've still got work to do.
And I hope that the listening audience can listen to you with open eyes, an open mind, and an open heart to say, this just makes sense. Because I know, as well as you do, that sometimes people can hear us talking about these things and are like, hold up, you're paying women not to abort. No, what we're saying is we see them, we see what they're going through. We understand how the abortion industry and their lobby is manipulating a situation. What we have to do is do battle with what the abortion industry is doing.
Right. I mean, what floored me is this abortion fund over at the Bridget Alliance, which, by the way, specializes in funding late-term abortions after 15 weeks.
I thought that didn't happen, Lauren.
And that's what we heard on TikTok when we posted clips of Maria's podcast and story. Oh, this doesn't really happen. This only happens in extreme circumstances, right? People are putting their fingers in their ears and not wanting to actually hear the truth. But no, Maria was a low-income mom that didn't find out that she was pregnant until 6 months because of certain health issues. She had no idea she was pregnant, wakes up one day, right, and figures this out. She's living in a, converted garage. She's living in dire circumstances, paycheck to paycheck, barely getting by. And then you have these abortion funds saying, we'll be your best friend. We'll give you whatever you need. We'll dump all this money into your account, at least while you're on your way to this abortion appointment and a little bit after, right? And so she initially looked at this as, she even said, like, oh, wow, God, are you helping me through these people, right? And it was so interesting then when we came in as Sidewalk advocates and still met her need, but said, you don't have to take the life of your child to get the life that you want. We are here for you. We're going to meet your needs. We're going to make sure you get on your feet, right? And she can now look back and almost see, like, we've all seen the movies, the cartoons with the devil on one side of someone's shoulder and the angel on the other, right? And it was interesting that we were offering some of the same things, but it did not require her to sacrifice her child. And now she holds baby Jesus, her son, in her arms, who she named after Christ because she was so moved by how our community came around her. She looks at him and says, what a gift, like I'm now, and she's getting on her feet. She's figuring it out. We're still journeying with her. That was our promise after Jesus was born. This is what it means to be pro-life, because these women, they're being so deceived and duped. They're being told, hey, we'll have this all paid for. In fact, you can use some of this money on your light bill, on, whatever immediate needs that you have. And this will be a quick procedure and life is going to go back to normal. And she kept saying to her too, abortion is normal. So many women have an abortion. It's okay. She's thinking, gosh, at 26 weeks, even she was stopping to ask some questions, but she's being told it's not really a baby yet. The DC facility called her to confirm her appointment. She asked them a couple questions. It's not really a baby yet, not until a little bit later. I'm like, oh my gosh, So again, we are constantly sometimes as sidewalk advocates, as people of faith and conscience, we're just untwisting the lies, right? But then from there, the question is, how are we, to your point, Melissa, going to show up for these women and these families going forward? This is what it means to be the hands and feet of Christ in this post-Roe era.
And I want the listening audience, if they are just jumping in at this point, I want people to first of all hear what you're saying, which is, right, we still need people on the sidewalks in post-Roe America. And also, if you haven't been listening to our conversation up until now, go back and listen to all of it to recognize why it's so important, no matter what the state laws are, for folks to be involved on the sidewalk in every state. This is not a done deal. God isn't done needing ordinary people to do extraordinary things.
That's right. That's right. No, you nailed it. And every day, Melissa, we have dozens and dozens of sidewalk advocates, moms and dads, businessmen and businesswomen who go to the darkest places in their communities. The greatest crossroads of life and death in our world today is the sidewalk in front of your local abortion or abortion referral facility. And they're there to offer those loving, life-affirming alternatives with peace, with joy, even the joy of Christ, right? With hope, with kindness, and with caring. And that's where we see miracles happen. And it's chilling to me to think that if we had maybe just a little bit more funding, and then we're working on the awareness part of it as well, if we put God's people, good people, in front of every one of these facilities, there would be so many lives saved, because so many women arrive at these facilities and they just have no idea the resources that are available to them, the options that are at their fingertips. And so we're just overjoyed to be those connectors, right? And I just have to take a moment too to celebrate our pregnancy resource centers. They outnumber abortion facilities more than 4-1, and they are a jack of all trades. They can get women on insurance and helping them find a job, and, assistance with baby supplies. And you name it. Whatever the need is, they're often, 98% of the time able to meet it. And I've even told a woman out on the sidewalk, like, hey, if this center can't meet this particular need, let me know and we will figure it out for you, right? This is what it means, again, to be the hands and feet of Christ. Absolutely.
Well, and when I think about the Venn diagram, right, of the overlap of all of our organizations and lay people in the pro-life movement, there's an overlap between sidewalk advocates and what we do at the Abortion Survivors Network, because some of the sidewalk advocates encounter women whose abortions have failed. In today's world, it's usually their pills that have failed. And those sidewalk advocates are sometimes the only people who are talking to those women and saying, oh man, you're not the only woman whose pills have failed. And you know what? There's still hope for your baby. There's still hope for you. We can go get you connected with a pregnancy center. You don't have to abort again. We can get you in touch with the Abortion Survivors Network, where moms come together. Right? You're not the only woman who has gone through this. You can talk to other women, ask them questions. Like, this is what I want people to see, that this is what the body of Christ really does look like in the pro-life movement. Everybody walking out that calling. That's how important it is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we could not do what we do at Sidewalk Advocates for Life without our partnerships. I mean, by our very nature, we need those in order to help women because, like I said, we're crisis intervention. We're the paramedics arriving to the scene. Are paramedics important? Absolutely. I tell Sidewalk Advocates, you are just so intrinsic to this battle. Absolutely. And then it's kind of a special work, I think, to go deliver a woman to a pregnancy center or to a place that we know is going to service her situation and to let go. And then our hope is to bring them the next one and the next one. So whether, Melissa, it's bringing you a mom who's, abortion failed and now she can be part of the community and helping her to heal and her child as well, right, from that experience. Or it is that we've got an abortion worker who needs further healing because they're leaving. We go to, and then there were none, abortion worker ministry. We have women who have become pregnant because of rape. And so we take them to Save the One, right? And so there's so many partners out there that we're so honored to join hands with. We all need each other. We all need to be working together. And I think, the other big thing that I learned from my former boss, David B. Wright, is to keep the main thing the main thing. If you're playing football, don't take on basketball. Like, I don't need to become an expert in soccer, right? It's like, can we do this thing and do it well and to be known for doing it well in service of others and in service of the greater mission? That's enough. And at the end of the day, it's not really us anyway. This is unto, at least to those of us that are believers, our Lord Jesus Christ, right? Who died and gave his life for us and has invited us to be his hands and feet out to a hurting world that doesn't yet know the good news. And so can we live that even in the very work that we do day to day, being his hands and feet and facilitating transformation? That's really what it's all about.
And I love that about you. And I love that about what you guys do. I mean, I will never get tired of cheering you guys on and supporting what you're doing. My life is full of people who, in their own ways, were on the sidewalk. They may not have ever known the fruits of their prayers and their own counseling, but I have to believe my heart at this point in my life, many of them have heard about the good work that they did. For people who want to get involved, want to know more, how do they follow you? How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So you can go to sidewalkadvocates.org. And if you want to join an existing location, we have a map there where you can see our current approximate 250 locations. You can start a location if you don't have a presence at your local abortion or abortion referral facility. We would love for you to bring this to your community, and we will train, equip, and support you and be with you every step of the way. We don't just train people and say, have a nice life. We actually assign you a regional programs manager in our programs department to journey with you. Some of you will be called to give of your precious treasure. We even have a prayer team. Some of you will be called to receive those emails every week and to be praying over specific requests of our teams and our sidewalk advocates and the moms and babies that we serve, right? And so there really is a place for everybody in this movement and even outside of Sidewalk Advocates for Life, right? But I just invite you to come to the website, check it out. And then we're on all the major social media channels. Just search for Sidewalk Advocates for Life and you'll find us.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for joining me on this episode and for all that you and your team do every single day.
Oh, absolutely. Right back at you, Melissa. We're cheering y'all on as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, audience, for tuning in to this episode of Life Beyond Abortion with Lauren Muzyka from Sidewalk Advocates for Life. I hope that you take Lauren's words to heart, to recognize the battle that is before us in today's world, and to really prayerfully discern how God is calling on you to participate in your community. As Lauren shared, ordinary people are called by the grace of God to do extraordinary things, and not alone, but together. And so I think on behalf of Lauren and I just want to encourage you in the audience to be as blessed as she and I are, joining other people to make a difference for Christ.